been working on repeat attenders for the last 10 years, from the research phase through to sort of now. And it was filmed over 6 years. So it was between 2012 and 2018. And that was a bit of shooting and also post-production happening at the same time as well. So we'd do a round of post and then go back, shoot some more that we needed. A storyline had changed, or, you know, something had changed significantly enough to go and get some more footage. So that's sort of why, it happened over such a long period of time.
Yeah. And what made you sort of have the original idea? What sparked it all off?
I came up with the idea for the film when I was having a coffee with a friend that worked on a production in the West End. And I just found myself talking about the fans and wanting to know about the super fans. And I'd noticed that I always do that. And I just thought, there's stories there. There's something there that hasn't been discovered before, and I'd like to do it. And that sort of sparked the sort of research phase. And then once I sort of started to get permission and some support from the industry and from SALT and the governing bodies connected to theatre and the arts, I then realised that this is something people want to know about, and it's an interesting enough topic to spend some time and money working on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I watched it last night. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And like, to what extent do you think this is a film about theatre, and to what extent do you think it's a film about sort of obsession?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's about theatre, of course, but it's also about the human condition and obsessions and addictions and mental health and subconscious thinking, and how we do a lot of things that we're not quite aware that we're doing, and can actually be good for you. You know, a lot of people think of not being aware or doing something subconsciously that's bad, but we do a lot of things that are actually quite good. So there's definitely a balance between the two. And I think the repeat attenders subject, there's only so much you can talk about. So we keep asking how many times you've seen a show. That gets quite boring after a while. You're watching a film that's essentially a spreadsheet. So it had to have some essence to it, and some real characters that had decent enough stories that you wanted to stay with them.
Yeah. And how did you find the people that end up featuring in this film?
I found a lot of the people from the film online in forums. It's quite a private thing to do if you're a super fan of a show and you see it hundreds of times. It's something you do, most of the people do on their own. Some people do it in groups or groups of friends, but a lot of people go and see their show alone, and that's their experience of loving their show. So that was one way I found them. Then I also, because I was given permission and access to Starlight Express, I went to Germany, and that's where I met Gudrun. She literally roller skated into somebody else's interview, and that's how I met her.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting you saying about how it's quite a lonely hobby, because I think something that I really took from it was about the community of theatre and the sort of shared experience of theatre. And what do you think, what is it about theatre that you think is different to like people are doing currently, watching these, filmings of theatre online, and what do you think the extra experience of going and seeing it live can bring to people?
Yeah, that's the fascinating thing about theatre, is that there might be someone that follows their favourite show hundreds of times and they do it as their own personal hobby and they don't really share that with anyone. But just going to the theatre, they're having conversations with several people. So if they go to the merch stand, they're talking to them there, checking out the merch. They go grab a drink, doing the same thing, to an usher, take you to your seat. You might talk. It's very common to talk in a theatre to the person next to you or react with them. And that person might not have spoken to somebody all week, and yet they've had 3 experiences connecting with other strangers. That's such a unique experience. It doesn't happen on the tube. So, it's a strange experience, especially in London, to not talk to people in the tube, but then you go to a theatre and everyone's having a good old chat. It's great.
Yeah. And obviously you went to quite a few places around the world. Did you notice, is there anything sort of unique about London and the way that London theatre operates that you could sort of pick out as distinct, or is it kind of universal?
I guess theatre all over the world, there is a tradition to it. There is a universal experience attached to it. But there are some subtleties in each country that are different. In Germany, they're very much about selling popcorn and pretzels as, at interval. So it's an odd experience to walk into a theatre foyer and it smells like a cinema.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's in Australia, I know the theatres in Australia are quite a bit bigger, especially the foyers. So there's a lot more space. So there's a more of a, experience before the show. I feel people want to get there before and have a drink and stand in the foyer, because they're not being, they're not queuing up on a street or, sort of being shoved to their seat as soon as possible because there's no space. So yeah, there are subtleties all over the world for sure. There is something about London theatre that is very special, just the historical aspect and just the beauty of the buildings and just how much those theatre owners take care of those buildings. It's so special.
Yeah, amazing. And what's sort of your own experience with and relationship with theatre in general, musical theatre, or just sort of theatre in general?
Yeah, I mean, I love theatre. I've been seeing musicals since I was a kid, and that was my introduction to theatre. Seeing Cats first, and then Starlight Express. Ironically, two of the characters are big fans of those shows, but I don't necessarily love those shows or watch them. Have watched them over the years. They're just the shows that got me into it as a kid. They captured my imagination. And that became a tradition. It was like, oh, you've seen Cats, you saw Starlight Express. Oh, are you going to see Les Mis that's coming out? Oh, yeah, we'll probably see Miss Saigon as well. It just becomes part of your life then, within a family when that happens, because it's that shared experience between parents and children that is so rare. When that happens and that's a nice experience, you want to do it again, of course. Yeah. So yeah, it's something that's been around in my life for a while. A lot of people ask me if I'm a repeat attender. I've seen shows, multiple times if I enjoy them or I get a kick out of them, but I don't think I've seen any show under like more than 10 times or more than 9 times. I tend to get to a point where I think I've seen everything and experienced everything in the show that I need. And that's my experience, whereas somebody else might like all those nuances and the subtleties and seeing a different cast member in every role. That's their jam. That's what excites them and makes them happy.
So you're a fan, not a super fan, perhaps? Yeah,
I'm a fan. I'd say I'm a theatre lover. I'd say that's probably, the most accurate way to describe my passion and my love for it. And I mean, even I don't think there's a negative connotation attached to superfan, and I don't know about it. And you will have seen in the film that it's not a focus for me. It's not something I want to call people out on and say you shouldn't be like this. And who cares? Like, they're not hurting anybody, as long as they're not hurting anybody, I should say. As you found out in the film, that is not always the case.
A little cryptic clue there.
Yeah. So I just think super fan, repeat attender, extreme fan, theatre lover, theatre goer, whatever keeps you happy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Something that's mentioned by a couple of the interviewees is the parallel between sort of theatre and sports. And there are people who can name every player on a sports team, and that's kind of more socially acceptable than people who can name every single actor in a show. And what is it, do you think, that makes theatre different, say, to something like sport, where it feels less socially accessible to be a super fan?
Yeah, that comes up a lot. It's something that is slightly strange. I guess if you have, say, 3 families, most of those families will have a sport or a sport and a team that they follow. And all of those family members may follow the same team and be very passionate about it. It's something that they share and something they're connected with. That's not so common in terms of musical theatre and musicals. So it's not necessarily something that's going to be the first conversation at a barbecue when you arrive, saying, oh, I saw that musical the other day and I thought it was rubbish, and I heard you thought it was great, the first thing they'll probably say is, how is your team? They played terribly and they lost and all of that. So I guess it's that it's not, it's mainstream, it's extremely popular all over the world, but it's not something that is so common that it's part of everyday conversations that people have naturally as an icebreaker.
No, and I think, again, like linking into that, the idea of a lot of people talk about finding this sort of home in theatre, and this idea of being this sort of escapism element. And do you think that's an important thing in theatre? And do you think it's going to become more important going forward when theatres can reopen and people can kind of go back and experience that in this kind of strange world we're living in now?
If anything, what theatre lovers are exploring or experiencing more now, more than ever, is just, we know we love shows and going to see shows and going to the theatre, but when it's not there, we really want to get back there. And I think that's something that once things do return to some sort of normality, I mean, I know myself, I've got the shows lined up, like, that's where we're at. We're all missing that thing in our lives that is a big part of our lives. And whether you're more a negative sort of theatre goer who just sort of goes to a show and just, criticizes everything within the show, or you're someone who just loves everything, everyone is missing that thing in their life right now. And it's a positive, healthy thing to enjoy, and it's gone. And I think we're just going to want to, like gym goers that can't go to the gym right now, they're going to be going 6 days a week as soon as those gyms are open.
So do you think we'll see a lot more people go to theatre more regularly once everything opens back up again?
I think so, yeah. Well, I mean, what do I know? But I hope so. I hope that's what happens, because it's, perhaps we needed something like this to reignite that passion in us, and to remind us this is a privilege. This is not something that's always going to be readily available to you for many different reasons. So when it's back, get that subscription and, buy those tickets, hold off on the refunds. You're going to want to go and see the show anyway. So unless you need the money now, hold off on getting a refund. Like, that is helping. It is helping the industries, and it's helping these shows potentially stay afloat.
Yeah. And is there something you've got lined up that you think would be the first thing you go and see once things are back open, or?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was meant to be flying to the UK and the US to do screenings. So I had loads of shows in the West End and Broadway lined up to see. So it depends if there's travel available.
What would the dream be?
I really want to see Six. Haven't seen Six yet.
Nice.
And Moulin Rouge I haven't seen. And yeah, I'd be keen to see Company again. Saw it in the West End and thought it was fantastic. So Sunday in the Park with George was going to be on when I was there in London. So there's lots.
A long list.
So people can catch Repeat Attenders online on Vimeo on demand, or they can go to repeatattenders.com and follow the links. There's potentially some exciting news coming up. We're just doing a deal at the moment, or negotiating a deal right now. So it's doing really well. People are reacting to it really positively, and that's what I hoped for. It's a love letter to the superfans and to theatre fans, and I hope that you get something out of it, or explore something about yourself, or have a bit more of an understanding about people's behaviours and be less judgy about them, perhaps. So I hope people enjoy it and see that it is really an homage to musicals and theatre.